Welcome to the June 6th Urbana Sustainability Advisory Commission meeting. Call the roll, thank you.
I will. Stacy Gloss, Morgan White,
Here.
Andrew Stump,
Here.
Tomas Delgado,
Here.
Grace Woken,
Here.
Jessica Lemkool, Luke Westalker.
Here.
All right, so I guess we didn't have any minutes to approve from the last meeting?
Do we not have minutes to approve? Maybe I just didn't, and I didn't incorporate them.
The only thing was the agenda and the staff report was attached,
I'll incorporate if we missed a month, next month.
like the April 6th, or the April meeting.
Yeah.
Any additions to the agenda?
I was hoping to maybe have a brief conversation about a consideration to the discussion about a possible consideration for a resolution around edible landscapes
Okay.
within a municipality. Not fully fleshed out, but yeah, hoping to maybe just add it to our agenda for today.
Okay.
We have to move to motion. Okay. Motion to add conversation about edible landscape policies under new business.
Second,
I second that motion.
thank you. Everybody approve? Aye?
Do we have to vote for it? Do we have to do a roll call vote for that kind of thing? No. I'm in favor of adding it.
All right, see everybody approves. Public input, anybody in the public like to address the commission? Thank you. And now to the presentations. Welcome Sarthik Prasad. He will give a presentation on sustainable transportation updates.
Hello, everyone. So, hi everyone. I'm Sarthak Prasad. I work as the Sustainable Transportation Assistant at Facilities and Services, and we're just going to talk about a little bit about the TDM department, where I work, the TDM plan that we have, the progress report for TDM plan, the progress report for the campus bike plan. Then we'll talk about some of the sustainable transportation projects that we have on campus, UI ride, and some fleet information. And then last slide is about BPAC updates, which we can.
For people who don't know, will you say what BPAC is?
Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, where I also serve, representing the university. And TDM is the Transportation Demand Management Department, which comes under the Capital Programs Group at Facilities and Services at the University of Illinois. So the TDM, or Transportation Demand Management Department, we coordinate all the campus modes of transportation with an emphasis on safety and sustainability. We do not handle like motor pool or actual vehicles, but any resources, policies that go behind the infrastructure, and we coordinate with the communities regarding transportation. The TDM department is also responsible for the TDM plan, campus bike plan, the transportation chapter of the ICAP, which is the Illinois Climate Action Plan. And like in my department, Stacy DiLorenzo, she is the transportation systems manager, and like it consists of just us two and me. So now I'm just going to give you all a very brief overview of the TDM plan, and then we'll talk a little bit about the achievement report and then the campus bike plan achievement report. So the TDM plan is basically, it's a framework for our department, which was published in 2020, fiscal year 20, and then it was finalized, updated and finalized in fiscal year 23, so like this fiscal year. The prioritization methods include like safety. Again, like safety is of the highest importance for us. So any project that comes in with safety in mind, it goes to the top of the list. Then the location as to like where it is located, if it sees high traffic, again, like high pedestrian traffic. Then the volume of traffic, then condition of the pavement, and then alignment with the campus plans. And that's how we prioritize our projects on campus. Now, there were 4 elements, 4 key objectives for our TDM plan. They were asset management, programming, funding resources, and community engagement. And we are going to talk a little bit about asset management and programming. We're not going to go through funding or community engagement. This is an example of community engagement, as you all know. So under asset management, transportation asset management plan, which is another plan that we update every year for streets, that comes in, which includes patching and spray injection, mill and overlay of streets and pavement section repair and replacement. Then striping, signage, and traffic control, those kind of, those also come under asset management, and new infrastructure projects, as well as maintenance of existing infrastructure, also fall under asset management. So currently we are working on updating our maintenance matrix with the City of Champaign, City of Urbana. And we are in the process of developing a new maintenance matrix with the Village of Savoy. So basically, the maintenance matrix talks about like who's the owner for what. So who owns the street, who owns the sidewalk, who owns the sewer, who does the snow removal, stuff like that. Then maintenance of bicycle infrastructure comes under this.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
One of the things about this map is the green is the City of Urbana streets. So as the Urbana group, that's, you know, the part that the city is responsible for. There's a few spots in there within the like core of the green area that is blue, that the university the city had vacated to the university in connection with our master plan. And I don't think it's in his presentation. There's a conversation that we've been having for years about Matthews and potentially doing something to make that a safer, more sustainable, complete street for the pedestrians kind of going up and down there, north and south there. Matthews is the one right against the quad on the Urbana side. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. And other, like one additional project that I really like to highlight here is the division of responsibility map that we are currently working on. It's on GIS, it's on a GIS, on our GIS database, which we hope to share with the cities once it is complete, once it's finished. And it will basically incorporate all the maintenance matrix aspects, especially for the pavement side, not for like landscape or sewer or stuff like that, but at least like pavement, like roads, streets, and sidewalk bike paths. those will be included in the GIS layer. We also, like my department also maintains the eco counters, not just maintain installation, purchase, installation, and maintenance of eco counters. And we'll talk more about eco counters in a bit. These are automatic bicycle and pedestrian data, like counters that we have on campus. Currently, like we are working towards making our campus more ADA compliant, and there we have some funding available, which we are currently using to achieve that goal. We had developed an ADA transition plan supplement, which was published in 2018, and we are trying to just chip away some of the projects that were listed there, or some of the new things that have come up that have taken priority. So for example, a couple of projects that were completed using this funding were Stadium Drive, north sidewalk along Stadium Drive between Oak Street and First Street. In the next few weeks, you will see the sidewalk along Drez, so on Oak Street between Stadium and Gregory Drive, which will like complete the connection or make the connection from like Eikenberry Commons to Drez complete. So yeah, and again, like if you have more questions, like I'll be happy to answer. Some of the programming things that we work on include traffic closures, where we work very closely with the cities and other departments on campus, such as parking, again, DRES, which is our Disability Resources Education Services, and other departments, MTD, to make sure like we have smooth traffic movement along these areas. To encourage active modes of transportation, we recently launched a commuter program, which we are currently evaluating. We have our bike-friendly university application due this August. So, by the way, congratulations, City of Urbana, on getting gold or renewing gold bike-friendly community status. We have, again, bicycle and pedestrian counters. We do MTD workshops to encourage more faculty and staff to use okay. All right. Other than that, we have our, we collaborate with students, faculty, and staff on various projects. And yeah, so now we are going to talk briefly about the progress reports that we published this year. So from Campus Bike Plan Report, again, the bike plan for the campus was published in 2014, and over the past few years, we've been publishing annual reports on our bike plan. In this fiscal year, basically, or in the last year, our bike fee, which is a student-initiated fee, which is basically $1 per student per semester that we get for bicycle programming and infrastructure. It was renewed for the next 4 years. We, like my department, we conducted a mode choice survey in spring of 2022, and a report of which is currently online. So again, like I'm sure you will have this presentation, so you can go and check it out. If not, there is a website called ICAP portal, which is the Illinois Climate Action Plan portal. If you search that on Google, just search for mode choice survey, you will find it there. We started a commuter program this year, and some of the other highlights, we installed several new bike racks on campus. We removed or upgraded, I will say upgraded the bike racks at Illini Union and Vet Med. And we received two SSC funding. We also removed the abandoned bike path along Springfield Avenue from Granger Library to Matthews and replaced it with a 10-foot wide shared use path. Now, for the TDM achievement report, in fiscal year 20, we received $4.5 million for transportation asset management plan for pavement maintenance and repair. And this, it was rescinded in fiscal year 20, and then we got it again last year, and this year we have received, or we have encumbered about $2.6 million already. As I said, other notable things include we have updated our bike map, which now has all the locations of all bike racks on campus, including an image and how many bike racks there are. So again, if you go to the website bike.illinois.edu, you can go to the map section, and when you scroll in, you'll see all the green dots. They are the bike racks that are on campus. And we installed eco counters. Again, we'll talk more about those at 5 locations. So 2 counters at, 4 locations. The 5th one is going in any time now. So 2 counters at each location on either side of the street for bicycle and pedestrians. And we finally installed smart poles at Illini Union Bookstore. Now, to give you some, now we'll talk a little bit about eco counters. So these are the bicycle and pedestrian counters. So now here you'll see this bollard type thing. This is the casing where the sensor goes. It uses a infrared technology to count pedestrians. And so basically the infrared goes through, is pointed towards the sidewalk. And as a person walks by, they're counted as a pedestrian. One of the, not disadvantage, one of the, one of the things are, even if it's a bicycle that goes through the sidewalk, it'll count it as a pedestrian because, again, it's a infrared technology. It's not going to distinguish between pedestrian and a bicyclist. However, here you will see some loops. So these are magnetic loops. So if a bicycle passes through that, it gets counted as a bicycle because, again, the metal in the bicycle activates the sensor, basically. Or there is a, so currently we are working, we are working on installation of these counters at John and Wright Street. Well, it will actually be closer to the bookstore. Yes, Morgan.
So these are actually part of, that's a follow-up to the MCOR project.
Yes.
So if everyone remembers, MCOR was this, was $47 million project, infrastructure project that did complete streets in Urbana, Champaign, and on campus. And these are the locations where we're, from the grant, required to do counts. So this Eco Counters is providing the data that is required from that grant. And that was a really exciting grant because normally that funding goes towards expanding another highway and adding another lane with lots of more vehicles or a bridge. This was one of the first times that it went towards an inner city, inside the city, which is why it's called MCOR. It was in the core of the city. And so that's a long story, but this is
Yeah.
a sort of a closure of that in some ways.
Yeah.
Is it important to like count bicycles versus people?
I think it's good enough.
Yeah.
Or do you have to get down to like scooters,
So
wheelchairs, and
It doesn't, the current infrastructure or the current equipment that we have on campus, it cannot distinguish between scooters, skateboards, and bicycles. But again, like in the future, well, since I'm in the process of purchasing more counters, they will be the same kind. So we won't be able to get we cannot check whether it's a bicycle or a scooter, but there is technology available. And again, like for next year, I have funding available to purchase one more counter, which I want to place at the new Savoy shared use path on First Street, just to see like what the usage of that is. And hopefully, like for that, I can get that technology. So yeah, like currently we have 10 counters in hand, 8 are installed, 2 are being installed, or they're in process of getting installed. And I'm right now like purchasing 14 more counters for 7 locations. Okay, I'll start speeding up. So these are some kind of some data that you can see. Like again, Elena Union is the most used area, which is again like it is as anticipated, basically, for bicycles and pedestrians. For bike registrations, the so far number should be higher up because I have not updated the slide in about a month. But we have a national bike registration system which is open to everybody in like City of Champaign, City of Urbana, Village of Savoy, as well as the campus. There is a $10 registration fee, which gets you a sticker. But as you can see, like our numbers for bike registrations have gone up significantly in the last 3 years, and the numbers of recovered bicycles have also gone up. So currently we are at about, it's only 10% of the bicycles that we are recovering, but it's still better than what we had before. So there are 8 locations on campus and in the community where you can collect a sticker. So in Urbana, we partner with like Urbana Free Library is one of the locations where you can get a sticker. No, we don't have the city building, but they do have, like, we have shared the information, the back-end information with the City of Urbana Police Department so that they can also like use this platform to look for bicycles that were stolen or look for data on that. I'm currently working on a end of year bike roundup. I'm going to speed up. I'm going to like tag the bicycles in the next 2 weeks. Then the first week of July we'll identify them. Then mid-July we'll remove all the bicycles that are left on campus and were abandoned. In April, I did a bike census of the campus. We did not get enough volunteers. Only had about 17 volunteers, and we counted nearly 3,000 bicycles. But that was only for about 75% of the campus, and some locations, especially on the northwest side of the campus, like of the university district, were not collected. And one of the major locations was the block near the campus instructional facility. But again, 3,000 bicycles was pretty good. Bicycle-friendly university applications are due in August 23. We are working with a couple of, I have worked with a couple of students to work on that. And our hope is to achieve gold certification this year. Several SSC-funded projects, I'm not going to go through that. We are going to update, I am updating the campus bike plan, which is expected to complete, or the target date for me is next year, May of 24. Again, from our current campus bike plan, all of the high priority infrastructure projects were completed. The 72% of high and medium were completed, and for lower priority projects, there were several that we are reevaluating them. Basically, some didn't need what we had asked for 10 years ago. So one of the things that I have highlighted here is something that I want to do in fall semester, which is a bike audit. Again, I don't know how to do that. I'll look for some students to help me out, and I'll reach out to Champaign County Bikes and Prairie Cycle Club and others to get some ideas. We have already reached out to several of our stakeholders, including City of Urbana. We will be working, I will be working with BPAC. I will be presenting the bike plan to them and get their comments. And there will be a public forum as well at the end of next spring semester. For VO bicycles, this is one of the more recent updates. We currently have, our current contract allows them to have 750 bicycles on campus. E-scooters are not allowed on campus. Cosmo E's, again, on our contract, Cosmo E's still, we do not allow them to use throttle. We have a pilot ongoing. That's why there is an asterisk. So the contract says you cannot use the throttle, but with the pilot, we are allowing them to do that right now. And if the pilot is successful, we will amend the contract with that information.
I'm so sorry. What is the Cosmo E?
Cosmo E is the sit-down scooter with pedals, the Class 2 e-bikes.
In the state law, there's a definition of a bicycle, and a Cosmo E counts as a bicycle, while the e-scooters do not. It has to do with movable pedals,
Yeah.
2 wheels, things like that.
We are currently working on renewing our contract with VO for the next 5 years. City of Urbana and City of Champaign, they're also working, or they have already completed their negotiations or the contract. So for City of Urbana and City of Champaign, they worked on a 3-year contract for 1,000 bicycles. Of course, we didn't know about that. Maybe we'll see that. We'll see some other time. Who knows? We'll see. And then for the pilot program, we have asked, or we have added some requirements from for VO to operate these Cosmo E's on campus, which include geofence around all of main quad, alma mater, South Quad, Bardeen Quad, so all of the quads basically. The Red Oak Rain Garden inside trails of Arboretum, etc. They're only allowed on side, on bike lanes, and they're only allowed on bike lanes and streets. They're not allowed on shared use paths or sidewalks on campus. We have also required them or have the requirement to have them park on a bike rack only. That's for Cosmo Ease. So when a student or a user tries to leave their bicycle in the middle of the sidewalk, it should say that parking, I forget the prompt that it gives, but it doesn't let you end your ride in the middle of the sidewalk. It tells you to end your ride at a bike rack. Then we have the slower, we have the slower speed limit in the core of campus, which is for 8 miles an hour. The core of the campus is determined by the CATS Zone 1, which is the Campus Area Transportation Study Zone 1, which was identified in 2007 multimodal study, I think.
It started in when the campus area transportation study was started in the late 90s after a few fatalities on campus, and we started to prioritize, reprioritize and reinvest in infrastructure to protect pedestrians, bikes, and bus and transit riders. So it's the core, it's the closest
it's
part of campus.
Core of the campus where the 8 miles per hour speed limit will be enforced. And if the pilot is successful and we move forward to implementation on campus, we will have the same number of pedal bicycles, not the ESS, the regular pedal bicycles. And as we have the Cosmo Ease, because their VO's plan is to remove their Halo E or the electric assist bicycles from their fleet, basically. So we will have them replace those with pedal bicycles, which is something our students really, really want, because we've had, I've had a lot of students ask me about it. So next slide is about UI Ride, which is a inter-campus shuttle connecting the Urbana campus with the Chicago campus. And there are 2 routes per day, and I'm not going to talk a lot about that. I embedded a video. Okay, just hold on. Okay, in the last 3 years, it was started in 2019, and during the pandemic, it stopped, and then it resumed in August of 2021. And currently, these are the number of rides taken from Urbana to Chicago and from Chicago to Urbana. And you can learn more about that on the ICAP portal. We post the number of UI rides per fiscal year. I'm not gonna talk about the. We are investing in electric vehicles for FNS fleet, and so far we have 2 Ford F-150 Lightnings, all electric trucks, 1 Ford E-Transit, which is also a 100% electric cargo van. We have 2 more EVs on order, and we are we are going to expand our EV fleet for FNS fleet. The SSC funded about $130,000 last year to install EV chargers on campus. These are smart level 2 dual point chargers that we are purchasing currently, and we have to install them at 8 locations. We have installed 4 of them and we are in the process of, again, purchasing more. They are not available, again, the $134,000 is not available for general parking use. The general parking, the general EV charging station, those are under parking's responsibility. Here are just some images of our FNS vehicles. And for the BPAC topics, so in the last 6 months, or currently we are actually talking about SS4A grant for planning. SS4A is Safe Streets for All, which is a federal grant, and I forget the amount. There are basically like planning grants and infrastructure development grants. Last year, like CCRPC, we went after these grants, which were more and mostly infrastructure heavy. There were planning elements, there were educational elements, but most of the funding was for the two grant application. The two major projects were infrastructure, and that was for all, like City of Champaign, City of Urbana, Savoy, like Rantoul, Mohammed, like the Kuwats agencies, basically. Like everybody was involved in that. And we did not get it. This year, we are again going to go, or CCRPC is going for the same grant again, because this is a grant that's annual grant for the next 3 or 4 years. But one of the topics that the BPAC is currently discussing is that City of Urbana goes after a planning grant, while CCRPC goes for like a grant as one unit for like all Kuwats agencies. There's some confusion about that, but we're the BFC, the bike friendly community application was heavily discussed over the last few months, which again, like City of Urbana has now gained or not regained, renewed the gold status. One of the projects or one of the topics that come up very often is connecting downtown Urbana with Farmers Market and having like a trail to have for pedestrians and bicyclists. So like whenever there is like a parade or like St. Patrick's Day or anything, like we had closed down like Main Street and a block around in that area. That was kind of what we were discussing for, like, let's say for Farmers Market, like there could be a greater connection to the Urbana downtown so that people can walk and bike freely around, connect to those areas.
Would that be like closing the downtown streets Saturday mornings during the
That
nice
was
weather?
Kind
the
of what we
basic
were
idea?
yeah, that was kind of, but again, like it
Yeah, I mean, they
Yeah.
do it in,
Yeah.
don't they do it in some major cities where they close down
Yeah.
the streets regularly for
Yep.
events. I like that.
Then some of the other things that we were talking about were, again, like Lincoln Avenue, the crosswalk on Lincoln, Lincoln at Main Street, the crosswalk there, it was recently added, but it's again like still not the best. So they were talking about, or we were talking about some yield signs so that people who are coming in from north or south, they have more of a notice that a crosswalk is there or pedestrians might be there.
Is
Uh,
it current state law that you have to stop for a pedestrian in the crosswalk?
I don't think
So the law is if a pedestrian is in the crosswalk, you stop for them. So 1 foot in the crosswalk is officially in the crosswalk. If you're a pedestrian and there's a car right there, you don't want to step out in front of them even though they're required to stop because you don't want to be dead right. But you do have the right of way once your foot is indicating, and that's whether it's marked or signed or anything. If they're in the crosswalk, the cars are supposed to stop. So like there are crosswalks where there's a ramp on both sides but no striping and no signage, you still have to stop if there's a pedestrian in that crosswalk.
Because I've seen signs before that you might want to consider that's like state law to stop for pedestrians.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, oh, beware there are pedestrians here like it currently is.
Yeah.
Because
But-
I've been like in the crosswalk and a car's almost hit me multiple times at that intersection. So
Yeah, and that's like basically why we were like this came up so like twice or thrice in the last 2-3 like 5-6 months. So yeah. Other than that, we have been like we had the Vision Zero update. It was sent to the resolution was sent to the city council, I think back in December or January. Same thing for the no parking in bike lanes, which was sent out to the traffic commission again sometime in February or something like that. Because City of Champaign has actually enacted like a law that you cannot park in a bike lane, especially like on Green Street, where you see a lot of cars parked in the bike lane. Urbana, like again, like shouldn't, but there is no law against it. So I'm not sure like if there is or what happened after that. Like once it was sent from. So that's all. I know I went quite a bit, very, very, very long. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, like if you have any questions. Answer.
is there a map of where electric chargers are right now for vehicles?
Yes, so again, like there are certain applications. So like ChargePoint is one of the, ChargePoint is actually the standard that our parking department uses, and we try to, or we have all of our EV charging stations on that application database. And there are other apps also, of course, that you can use, but ChargePoint is the standard one that.
I don't really have a question, but thank you so much for sharing all of this information. I feel like I learned a ton about things that are happening that I just didn't even realize were happening, like those counters that I've probably driven past or walked past and not even noticed. So just thank you for sharing all of this work. I think it's important work that's moving us in a positive direction, and just appreciate your time.
And if you guys like want to know more about those counters or like to see more data, the data is actually on the ICAP portal for monthly, but we have more detailed data as well that is available.
Thank you, Sarthik.
Yeah, thank you.
Staff report.
Good evening, Commission. I'll save the carryout bag fee updates for that item on the agenda. We have started our third round of geothermal Urbana Champaign. The bulk purchase program has 3 contracts so far. The vendor is also having some success where they're finding properties that they can't fit geothermal wells in. They are having some success in installing air source heat pumps instead, which is also a good option, although not quite as good as geothermal, but still a good option for getting the heating switched over to electric. So happy with that program. Solar Urbana-Champaign, the bulk solar purchase program, has published the request for proposal to secure a vendor for our 8th year of that program. So we'll be working to schedule power hours very soon. The Arbor Division and the Landscape Recycling Center have made their first sale of urban lumber in the city. We're really happy about that. Years ago, the city removed a very large hackberry and had some of that log turned into slab and dimensional lumber. And it was an earnest effort, but at the time, staff didn't have time to really market it, and it sat in a storage unit for several years. We eventually brought that out of the storage unit and put it on sale at the Landscape Recycling Center, since we own that retail store and that's a place where we can sell things. And we had that on sale for about 2 years and didn't sell any hackberry. And then there was a really nice red oak log coming down out of a tree, and I had that, the Arbor Division had that milled into big slabs, and we marketed that, and then someone came in and bought the hackberry. So this is good. The big idea here is when the private arborists remove a tree from private property, or when a city arborist removes a tree from city property, it's typically disposed of as bulk wood at the Landscape Recycling Center. People can come get bulk wood for free. To make firewood, the Landscape Recycling Center will also split firewood and sell firewood. But some logs, maybe half a dozen a year, are worthy of being milled into slabs and dimensional lumber, and we think that's a higher and better use than firewood. But it's been tough getting some sales out of that, but happy to have our first. So, U-Cycle has been participating, Courtney Kwong has been participating with the Illinois Paint Stewardship Council, and that organization has been supporting a paint stewardship bill in the Illinois General Assembly. That bill has now become law, and so there's going to be a manufacturer recycling of waste paints that will be funded by a small fee at the point of purchase. So that's really nice. We get tons of paint at household hazardous waste collection events. That's a typical thing across the country. And so it's great to have its own extended producer responsibility or product stewardship system here in the state of Illinois. The next Sustainability Advisory Commission meeting would be August 1 at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you, Scott.
May I ask a question? I have a question about the U-Cycle program for the Paint Stewardship Act. I'm curious if there are more details on how that program would work. So for example, if I go to the hardware store, Lowe's or Home Depot, and I am looking for paint, I can buy their like reduced cost paint off their shelf. It was maybe a return or something like that. How does this act differ than purchasing paint that's been returned to the store?
The system will provide, on the basis of population, will provide drop-off locations for waste paint. So if you buy a gallon of paint, paint a room, have a surplus half gallon of paint that you know you're never going to use, you can take it to one of these drop-off locations at any time that they happen to be open. I don't know, there may be rules about their hours in the act, and drop that off at no additional charge. The the recycling, the drop-off and the recycling of that waste paint will have already been paid for.
That includes any type of paint?
I think it's gonna, I'm pretty sure it's oil-based and latex. Most is latex anyway, so.
So it's not like selling, like, just you, it's not a program where then someone goes to that store to buy like remnants of paint from somebody, but instead it's
I think
going
that
to be recycled or taken care of by the manufacturer for actually
My-
recycling it properly.
my recollection is that there are multiple options for managing the paints collected at that point. I think it emphasizes reuse and recycling. I haven't read a draft of this bill in years, but I think part of the consideration was these paints are sometimes used for waste recovery, that is incineration. And, you know, the advocates are typically working to craft a bill that moves most of that paint into a reuse and recycle pathway instead of incineration.
Next would be unfinished.
Yeah, I'll just say a few words, and then others may want to comment. This carryout bag fee was discussed at City Council, and Council asked staff to spend some time collecting some background information and coming back with a memo to kind of frame up what might be the next steps. What I've been working on is contacting some of the staff at cities that have already established carryout bag fees in the state of Illinois, and getting an understanding of you know, how that implementation went and what they might do differently. So I'm essentially working backwards in time from the most current cities that have passed a carryout bag fee or established a carryout bag fee. And at this time, I can tell you that their ordinances are all almost identical. So I think, you know, as these things are iterated, people work out the kinks, and the laws get more and more similar to each other.
And they probably were doing the same thing you're doing, asking other people.
Right, exactly.
Comments?
Is there any research or feedback that SAC can assist with in developing that memo and background information?
You know, in terms of a lot of the literature review, we had really good help on that from a student at the University of Illinois. So that's fairly well established. I'll contemplate that. Nothing comes to mind just yet.
I was curious too, could you give some background on it going because just the SAC resolution went, right? Not one for council to pass. I don't know if you could tell us a little bit about that internal process.
Yeah, so the city council received the SAC resolution and a memo just describing that the SAC had a resolution essentially. And also, I prepared as you all had suggested, I prepared the same resolution only from the perspective of city council and passed that on. I think that made council packet, but I don't recall exactly. Do you remember, Grace, if that made council packet? No, it didn't. Okay. Well, it's still, you know, it's on the drive and ready to go if council should need it. And so, yeah, right now I'm preparing what it is that others are doing, and also some anecdotes of what their experience has been. And so taking notes on that and pouring it into a memo. I need to follow up with leadership about when we're going to put it back on council agenda, but that's probably going to be, you know, worthy of another committee of the whole meeting at city council, I would say fairly soon.
Great, thanks so much. Yeah, thought we had talked about a month or so looping back around. I don't know if you remember, Stacy, but yeah, it's about that time soon. And also just want to plug that the city budget is in season and has to be finalized and approved by the end of June. So it was also an opportunity, if anyone wants to review, it's on the city's website, the proposed FY24 budget, and also a chance if we were interested in slipping in some things. Because my understanding is that it was, the full resolution to council was kind of held back because there was concerns that we'd have to restructure things because our capital improvements stuff, Public Works is strapped for money and resources. And so it would have to be, you know, a give and take. What would we sacrifice if we were going to do this kind of a deal? But I think that there's also the opportunity in the budget that, you know, this is time, if we say it's gonna cost a half-time staff person, then this is the time to do it. There are other times too with, you know, amendments, but I don't want that to be the obstacle to say, well, we don't have the capacity to do it. It's like, well, then let's build the capacity to do it. So I appreciate you looking into what it will take. And then I think it'll be then the next steps of how do we do whatever it takes to get there. So, thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll just say, I think I put it in email, but I presented the presentation that Jess had worked on, and it was really good. Thank you so much. And I think that it was appreciated by city council, and it was a pleasure to present. So thank you.
To be fair, Luke did all of the work and I just prettied it up on Canva, so. And, you know, Grace and that person from U of I, everyone did the work, I just did the Canvaing, so, but glad it all worked out.
Yeah, Tyler Swanson from U of I, yeah.
Thank you so much, yeah.
It will be exciting if that happens, and I'm with Grace. It would be cool if it could happen soon, because we're hoping it kind of self-funds itself, so, yeah, awesome.
And
Yeah, so thanks for letting me just add this agenda item to today's meeting. Was hoping to just get a sense of, from you all, if there's any interest in exploring the possibility of maybe researching and introducing a proposal ordinance around edible landscapes through the city of Urbana. But maybe before diving into it, I want to just acknowledge that there is city property where there is gardening occurring on right now. And I'm unaware of any formal policy for community members to necessarily go and harvest that, you know, what's ever being grown on, I think it's Wood Street right now. I think maybe the only community garden right now where food is being grown. There was the Learman neighborhood garden, which is now defunct. But I believe that it's just Wood Street at this point, which is maintained through the Solidarity Gardens network. Yeah, maybe first asking Scott, are you aware of any policy that exists right now for harvesting any kind of grown food on city property?
Not that I know of. As you mentioned, we have the Wood Street lease, so of course, folks are harvesting from that property. I think at this point, we're you know, just considering on a case-by-case basis, and certainly if we're gonna establish a property where folks are you know, leasing for $1 or whatever and growing, they're gonna be able to harvest that. But if you're thinking, you know, in terms of more distributed, I mean, there are, you know, a few pawpaw trees here and there in city right-of-ways. I don't know of any policy about harvesting that. Undoubtedly, the people perhaps are.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
Right, and this is partly an acknowledgement that like people already, they already forage for wild foods on city property, on Park District property, Forest Preserve property. So in many ways, we're what I'm thinking of doing is just really formalizing that and giving more allowance and encouragement for that to happen in our community. With acknowledgement that it's already happening and we're already intentionally growing crops on city land when it's permitted to do so. So, yeah, maybe I could pause there for any questions. I did want to maybe touch on, I was going to bring it up in new announcements, but touch on some of the feedback and findings that the Feeding Champaign County Food Summit had brought up. That was a food summit that happened in April, planned by the Champaign-Urbana Public Health Department, United Way of Champaign County, and a number of community members, including myself, and Sola Gracia Farms, convening a number of food systems stakeholders from across the food system spectrum here in Champaign County. So growers, grocery store owners, even some restaurateurs, pantry managers, and a number of other folks who are kind of at the front lines of addressing food insecurity in the county. But I could save that for maybe a later discussion. So.
Just a comment. I grew up here. I'm from Urbana, and one of my fond memories is harvesting, berries from the trees as I was walking to and from school. And it's over by, I'm thinking Blockbuster, so what is that now? I don't even know. But across from Broadway Food Hall, there were some blackberry trees. And I loved those. Those are so good. Just the concept I'm very supportive of. I'm curious what some of the effects, if we made the policy, would that then end up leading to a restriction that isn't a good idea? And so it's good to know that you're coming from out of a discussion with a lot of advocates.
Right.
Was that part of the discussion? Was the idea of getting some formal city
For some
policies?
attendees there, I wouldn't say that was the overall theme or even like a larger discussion within that summit, but there were a number of folks from organizations that are focusing on agroforestry who had brought those concepts to discussion there. And yeah, my own interests kind of align with that too, so.
I would just say that I'm appreciative that you're bringing kind of the issues of both sustainable agriculture and food justice to the Sustainability Advisory Commission. I would really like to have some presentations here by maybe some of the organizations that you're connected to over the next few months, just to learn more about what's kind of going on in our community, what are the issues and how are they being talked about, what are some of the solutions that are being presented. I think it would be also wonderful to see if there are model ordinances or model resolutions that other communities have brought forward for us to review. So in that regard, I think that I would propose asking you to be one of the presenters to give a longer presentation than just the 5 minutes that we have here or 10 minutes that we have here tonight, if you're amenable to that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think that would be a great next step. I can hopefully align it with the drafting of the report that the planning committee from that summit is producing, so we can at least have some relevant food security data relevant to Urbana, but yeah, could do that. Mm-hmm.
I also am excited for you to bring this up. I think, food autonomy and all of that is incredibly important for the humans, but also I could see it having such an impact on the planet. So one question I have was the thought maybe of expanding expanding those edible landscapes, and is that kind of the vision, expand and then just kind of normalize people just getting some delicious, healthy foods?
Yeah, I think it's partly to formalize what's already occurring at garden sites, in addition to allowing community members to think of new ideas around more permanent edible features within city property. So thinking more of like woody perennials that require less maintenance, that are going to be producing food with or without like human intervention. You know, which is sadly part of the reason why the Learman neighborhood garden is now defunct, is just there was a hiccup in gardening that year, and now it's gone. So, yeah, really establishing more permanent and sustainable forms of food sources for community members.
I think that there's a good example in Knoxville, Tennessee, called Beardsley Farm, that is connected to but independently run their community action agency. So sort of like the CCRPC, except more on the community action side. They're a decade ago, and I know that it is still running, that their staff for the farm were supported through AmeriCorps grants, through AmeriCorps Vista grants. And something that I haven't seen a lot of here in the community is AmeriCorps Vistas being, you know, being programs that are helping community programs in the area. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I haven't really come across many folks that are being supported through an AmeriCorps program. But it seemed like a really great way to kind of provide funding and stability for folks to start sort of like the continuation of programs like that. And they also have some pretty amazing like fundraising strategies, because they are independently run. So they have the grant for the land from either from the city or from the county or whatever it is, but it's basically supported on its own through grants and through community funding. So I think it's a great example. There's probably tons of examples that you've already come across that would make a pretty good model. So I think I'm maybe recommending looking more closely at applying for AmeriCorps funds for staffing some of these programs.
Yeah, absolutely. I can compile some of that research together, and when the time is right, give a presentation to this body, and we can move forward.
Tomas, I'd encourage a lot of public engagement about, you know, how it's fun and tasty to have fruit growing trees in the city. The Public Works does get complaints about fruiting trees that just have little berries that are not really edible, falling on sidewalks, sweet gum tree gumballs, catalpa bean pods, acorns, walnuts. Almost every tree, even ones we're not thinking about having a bite from, have some sort of fruiting body that is pestering someone. And trees, all of these trees, the ones that are going to produce edibles and the others produce at least a dozen benefits for us that we could come up with in a matter of seconds. And some of these things, like having to rake leaves, are just part of the deal. But I think if we continue doing communications about all the positives that we get out of this, we'll develop a culture where people appreciate that they take dealing with raking up gumballs and leaves and other things, but they get all these other values out of it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Definitely kind of aware of, just the risk-averse, like, perspective of introducing fruit trees and nut trees to communities. But yeah, I just think, we thankfully have a lot of great community infrastructure here with groups like Solidarity Gardens and the CU Farm to School movement, and a number of other just enthusiasts and naturalists who would be willing to play one role or the other in stewarding, anything that's of benefit to us. So.
And any thoughts you have about what you might want to do in the right-of-way? There is a tree commission that works with the city arborist, so they're great folks to attend their meeting and talk with them, and I'm sure they would be interested to hear more about it.
Great. Thank you.
Grace?
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. Thanks for bringing this up and all the excellent points. And yeah, I think I have to get people over that because a sweet gum tree is nowhere near the same thing as apple or pear or berry bushes. That's not an edible tree we're talking about. Maybe technically, but that's no. And I think that, yeah, policy about city-owned property and harvesting would be fine, but I also would be curious then how do you differentiate or identify those city-owned garden spots versus ones with other management or ownership? And I'd be curious to learn more, what are those sites? Because it seems like there's not much. It's especially city. If you include parks and forest preserves, there's that bunch. But, I mean, city-owned property, I don't think there's that much to harvest from. And so I think that, yeah, also the expanding part is important, which I think is also your one of your goals here. And then also just wanted on a broader level, we talked a little bit in months past about lawn ordinances as well, with like no mow May or possibly no mow April. It's been brought up in other contexts in the city as well about revisiting our lawn and landscape ordinance. So I think that especially sometimes when we get into opening a whole can of worms, like redoing a city code or an ordinance, sometimes it's good to do it all on a broader perspective. And I think there's lots of things to include there about maybe prioritizing native plants and invasive species, along with maybe encouraging and allowing edible trees and harvesting, and issues with lawn grass, like do we really care about enforcing no more than 8 inches of lawn grass versus someone could have bush honeysuckle that's 12 feet tall and have a terrible invasive species taking over their entire yard, and that's perfectly fine. But as soon as the grass gets 9 inches, you can get a public nuisance thing. So, I mean, I think that that's a whole can of worms to look at, and I think it's exciting and needs to be done, and that could be a place for a larger conversation on how we regulate policy of landscaping in the city.
Yeah, that makes sense, and definitely I see like the intersection between what I've brought up and other topics that you have. So yeah, definitely it's something to consider.
Scott, does the city have in the tree inventory for new trees, are there any fruit trees?
I remember some pawpaws being planted in the right-of-way a few years ago. I haven't, of course, we have a ton of, what would be genus, is it family or genus Malus? Crab apples, apples of all sorts. I think most of them are probably not really worthy of eating. They're more ornamental apples. But I haven't really looked other than just hearing by word of mouth that there was a few pawpaws planted a few years ago. But it's there. It's that database exists. We can take a look.
Like, is the options for new trees, are there any fruit trees in that?
I don't think typically there are fruit or nut trees that are on offer. So that's exactly the kind of thing that the tree commission would discuss and talk with the city arborists, and I don't know where that conversation would go. But that's what they're there for.
I thought I remembered that getting brought up when we got this Lumpkin grant for the tree planting. And yeah, that was brought up about having edible fruit or nut trees, and I think it was kind of squashed out of the same concerns about maintenance and tripping hazards and things falling on the sidewalk, which I think is another barrier, real or perceived, that we need to work around. But I do recall I thought that was brought up and was kind of squashed for those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's there is an apple tree in West Urbana that hangs over a sidewalk and produces a lot of apples, and a lot of apples, and a lot of them fall on the ground and become a hazard on the sidewalk. So it's not nothing, but I think also there are some accommodations that can be made. I mean, it's a huge difference between a 3.5 foot wide right-of-way in some side streets and like, what is it, a 20, 25 foot right-of-way on Pennsylvania. you know, that makes a difference. It makes a difference as to, you know, the acceptability of that to the home, you know, adjacent property owner. But then we also have to take into consideration that that property owner won't be there forever, and they may sell the house next year, and then the next person may not want that. So but of course, that's also what happens with the non-fruit and nut trees as well.
As I
So
say,
it's,
the ornamental ones, I have a crabapple tree in the right of way of our house, and I love trees, and I hate this tree.
Right.
And the Osage oranges, you know, it's like you said, the crab apples, the
Yeah.
Osage oranges, the sweet gum balls, we have all of these non-edible trees that dump stuff all over the sidewalks anyway.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it might as well be food
Right.
falling from the sky and tripping on than all these other stupid non-edible things.
Right. Yeah, I think
Ruth.
there's certainly a case to be made, especially, you know, I don't know, I'm not familiar with nut trees, so I don't know what that's like in terms of, you know, what happens if you don't harvest it, you know, what kind of mess does that make? But I think these are great. I'm going to kick it all to the city arborists and the tree commission, because I think they'll know better than I will.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, yep. And any announcements?
Maybe just a few things, just flag again that city budget season, so if you're interested in reviewing the city budget, the township budget, the capital improvement plan that has a lot of the city sidewalks, roads, path projects, those kinds of things, those are online for review over the next month when they'll be approved. And there's also another round of public input on, we've been working on the comprehensive plan with Imagine Urbana, and so throughout the summer, there will be public input meetings and kind of workshops and things in specific wards throughout the city, and there's some information online about that. Thanks.
Any other announcements?
How do you find out when those are, Grace? Like those meetings, you know? Okay.
And you can look on the Imagine Urbana website, it's all on there.
Sometimes I just wish there was, well, I'm sure like, you know, Facebook or something, but you know, where it just kind of comes to me.
I wanted to share that I'm pretty happy that Urbana got the ITEP grant to install a shared use path on the side of Florida from, it starts at Lincoln in Florida on the north, like along the Arboretum in front of the President's House, the Prairie, the Orchard Downs area, and then I think, so that's where U of I ends, and then I think it goes another block or two to improve the bike infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure there. Yeah. I don't think it goes all the way to Vine, though. I think it's stops somewhere between Race and Vine, but I don't know exactly.
I found the thing here, but it's kind of long. Maybe I can put it to Scott, and you could send it to SAC members, and we have a Facebook group, right? Do you do a Facebook thing for city sustainability?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that'd be fun. If we could, can I send those to you?
Yeah,
To
sure.
put on Facebook and send to the group? Cool, thank you.
Any other announcements?
Just two quick items. One, I had mentioned Feeding Champaign County Food Summit. They'll be publishing a public report based off, just summarizing the discussions and themes that were brought up within the summit. The summit was invitation only, so I guess next iterations of planning will be for more broader community participation. So just be on the lookout for that when it is announced. And then the Urbana Park District is going to be revising, or going to be publishing a revised master plan for Weaver Park, which is just north of Dr. Preston Williams School. And that's in some integration with the Wellness Center, but they'll be offering another round of public input based off of the revised master plan. And this is a master plan that's revised based off of feedback from a sports and recreation usage survey that they put out in fall of last year, and a few focus groups that they had around development and usage of Prairie and Weaver Park.
Other announcements? Okay, thank you, Rich, for attending. Thanks.